I'm going to show you how to deploy a simple PHP application using Google Kubernetes engine. So a brief discussion that the difference between a compute engine and a Kubernetes engine is that a compute engine deploy in a virtual machine, but Kubernetes engine allows you to deploy application using Docker images and create a Kubernetes cluster, which is a totally different topic, but yeah, just to give you a background. So I'm gonna make this pretty straightforward, and the first thing that we need to do is to initialize our project. So initializing our application, we run gcloud init, we set our email, we set the project name, we set the default region. So since I'm near Singapore, I will always choose Asia Southeast. So now we are able to initialize our project properly. And since we are deploying in Kubernetes engine, we have to enable some APIs. So here we enable cloud build because we're using cloud build to build our Docker images. We enable cloud build, and we will also enable Kubernetes engine. So engine, yes. After enabling these two API, we have one more things to do, which is to install the kubectl command. Kubectl command is the SDK tool used to run some commands inside the Kubernetes cluster. So we are installing the kubectl command using the gcloud components install kubectl. And then we navigate to our JKE project. So I put it here in Cloud Essentials Demo JKE folder, and we have the Hello World JKE project. So in here we can see there is an index PHP that just says Hello World, Hello PHP. And once we finish our application, we can then containerize it and make it into an image using the Docker file. So here we create the Docker file from the base image of PHP 7.2 Apache, and we copy the index.php to the HTML folder of that, and then we set and run it in port 8080 and some stuff. We configure the PHP for development, and yeah, that's it. So once we also have a Docker ignore file, which I did not put in here. I don't know where is it. Maybe I put it somewhere. Okay, we need to create a Docker ignore file, so I will just fastly create it. Ignore here. Oh, it's already there. Maybe so. Here we can see. Where is it? Oh, because it's not being displayed because of the dot. So the Docker ignore file contains this stuff. So we ignore the Docker file, the README, and the vendor. And now we are good to go. So we can just do gcloud builds, submit, and we tag our image when we are building it to, like, this is the naming convention for submitting a build image to Google Container Registry, or when you're using Google Cloud for your containerization. So we are doing Cloud Essentials Demo. Oh no, this should be the project ID, but since I'm reusing a project that's not from last year, so I just say Meetup August 2019, and I say hello world JKE, and I build whatever is inside this directory, and I submit it and I build it. Now it's being submitted and built using the cloud build and being submitted in the container registry. You can see here, oh, okay. It says like sending build content to cloud builds. Yep, it's running. Cloud build isn't really necessary in this. You can just build it locally and push it to the container registry. But because we want to automate things, so we want cloud build to take care of it. So we can quickly check it using the console. Let's say cloud build. And we can check the history. And then we have here, where is that? I mean, we can quickly check it's built in the container registry. So our container registry should include the hello world JKE image. And so we are good. We are good and we are clarified that the image is there. Now we have to create our cluster. So I'm using the command line to create our cluster. So we are doing gcloud container clusters, create hello world JKE. The number of nodes in our cluster would be 1. We are enabling basic authentication, which is just basic. And we are issuing client certificate and setting our zone to Asia Southeast 1A. And then we are good. Oops, we haven't. I had a typo there. It's southeast, not southeast. Okay. It is now creating the cluster Hello World JKE in Asia Southeast 1A, and the cluster is being configured. So we have to wait for a few minutes or sometimes seconds. It takes fast before the, and since we just have one node, but for bigger clusters it would probably take more time. Now the cluster is being health checked. Now our cluster is successfully created. So if you have a bit of background about Kubernetes cluster, it needs more than just a cluster in order for us to see our application running. So currently our image is in container registry, and we are supposed to deploy it in our cluster using a deployment and a service. So what is a deployment? So a deployment is actually like what holds your app. So here I defined a deployment.yaml, which will basically tell the cluster that this is what I want for my application to be. It's taking a little bit of time to load, but when I open the file, you will be able to see what it is defining. So in this deployment, I have created it to point to the image in the container registry. It's not yet loading though. Please be patient. My deployment here. So we are pointing it to the Hello World JKE, and you see here we are getting the latest version of our container image, which we deployed previously using Cloud Build. And then after having the deployments, um, but first, before deploying anything, we have to confirm that our nodes are there. Of course, in this, we can see the number of nodes is 1, but we have to see, okay, we have a ready node with the, and then we can proceed with deploying our deployment. So we set kubectl apply deployment.yaml, and then it will create the deployment inside our cluster. And if we check, so kubectl get deployments, we can see we have 1, but it's not yet ready though. So we can check again and again. Okay, now it's ready. And then we can also get our pods. So the pods is what is inside the deployment. If you don't know, you can just Google these things and have a better background. But I'm just gonna focus on the deploying the application using the JKE. And then in here we have the services.yaml. So in order for us to be able to access our deployment and our pods, we have to create a service. So it's enable us to have a like ingress, not really ingress, this is a load balancer. So we are creating an external HTTP load balancer that allows us to be able to proxy over the pods that is inside the cluster. So in order for us to, I'm gonna clear this for clear purposes. In order for us to create this service, I'm gonna select kubectl apply this file services.yaml, and it says hello service is created. And then if we get services, we can see our service was properly created. Sometimes it's still pending, so we have to check if our service are ready, because the cluster IP is okay, it's going to be fast, but we won't be able to access our app using the cluster IP, so we have to wait for the external IP to show up, which is not yet showing up basically. It's okay, it takes a little bit of patience. Nope, not yet. We're just gonna wait for a while. Yes, it's there. And so we can just visit this here. And then we see our app deployed. So you see this is our external IP, and for further configuration, you can buy a domain, change the IP, and add some HTTPS configuration and stuff like that. And so to also like make sure that we understand it, we should be able to see all these things that we have created in the Kubernetes engine console. So in here, in the Kubernetes cluster, we see a Hello World JKE. In the workloads, which means the deployments that we created, we see one deployment with one pod. And in the service and ingress, we create a Hello load balancer that allows us to access the application in a specific endpoint, which is this one. So that is the summary of everything that we need to know in order for us to deploy simple PHP application in Kubernetes engine. So I hope you learned something from this video, and yeah, more experiments and more tutorials we can understand. Thank you for listening.